The promo ran all week. This Friday, don't miss Jeanine Pirro vs. Representative Jasmine Crockett in an unfiltered debate about law, order, and leadership. Fox News teased it like a championship fight. Piro was their longtime legal firebrand, brash, relentless, sharp-tongued. Crockett, however, was rising fast, known for her brutal takedowns in Congress and her unshakable poise under pressure. Friday night came. The studio lights flared. The live feed went global in seconds. A sleek backdrop glowed behind them, Prime Justice Special, face to face. Jeanine leaned forward, eyes flashing. "Let me just say, Congresswoman, you represent chaos. Your party's policies. Soft on crime. Disrespectful to law enforcement. You're part of the problem." Jasmine didn't flinch. She sat perfectly still, one eyebrow barely raised. Then she looked straight into the camera. "Judge Piro," she said, her voice low and deliberate, "for someone who claims to know the law, you sure have a hard time following the truth." The audience went quiet. Then Jasmine reached into her folder. Jeanine Pirro smirked. "Oh, please. Don't tell me you came here with props. You think you're going to rattle me with some folder?" Jasmine didn't look at her. She calmly opened it, pulled out a single page, and held it up for the camera. "Judge Piro," she said, "this is a sworn affidavit from a former NYPD detective, someone who worked cases during your time as district attorney in Westchester." Jeanine's smile wavered. "You're dragging up old nonsense. You're desperate." Jasmine kept going. "He states, under oath, that you intentionally blocked evidence in at least 3 cases, cases that could have exonerated wrongfully accused black men. You knew it. You sealed it. And then you went on TV claiming to care about law and order." Jeanine leaned back, visibly rattled now. That's defamatory. You're lying on national television." But Jasmine didn't stop. She pulled out a second page. "This one," she said, "is a letter from your own former assistant DA who resigned after accusing you of manipulating jury pools to favor conviction, specifically to boost your political career." The control room cut to commercial. Too late. Clips of the exchange exploded across social media. The silence in the studio was louder than anything Piro could have said. When the cameras returned from commercial, Jeanine Pirro looked different. The fire in her eyes had dimmed, her posture more guarded. She forced a laugh, trying to steady herself. "Oh please, Jasmine, are you really going to lecture me with out-of-context documents and anonymous accusations?" Jasmine leaned in, calm as ever. "They're not anonymous. But I expected deflection. That's what people do when the truth burns." Jeanine opened her mouth to respond, but Jasmine cut in, her tone sharpened now. "You call yourself a judge, but you've acted more like a political actor with a gavel. You ranted on TV for years about justice, but your record says you were more interested in headlines than fairness." Piro's co-host tried to intervene, stumbling in. "Okay ladies, let's keep it." "No," Jasmine said, turning toward him, "let's finish. Because people need to see this." She slid one last document across the table, an archived internal memo from the DA's office. The camera zoomed in on the highlighted line, "Directive to expedite convictions for media-sensitive cases." "That's your handwriting, Judge." Jeanine's face went pale. For a brief moment, the entire set was frozen. Then, slowly, one member of the live audience stood and began to clap. Another followed. And another. The co-host looked helpless. Jeanine didn't speak. She just stared at the paper in front of her, blinking fast, her mouth slightly open. Backstage, producers panicked. Phones rang non-stop. Executives were already drafting statements. But on screen, Jasmine Crockett wasn't done. She sat back, composed. "You wanted to talk about law and order? Good. Let's start with accountability. Something you ran from for years. Jeanine Pirro tried to recover. This is all politically motivated. You think you can smear my career over procedural? Stop, Jasmine said, not raising her voice, but slicing through her sentence like a blade. This isn't political. It's personal, to the men you helped put away. To the families you ignored. To the justice system you twisted for your own gain. Jeanine looked off camera, desperate for someone to cut the feed. No one did. Jasmine continued, slowly, you sat on this network, week after week, calling people like me radicals while you profited from fear. You screamed about crime while burying your own role in injustice. At that, the hashtag Piro files surged into Twitter's trending list. Clips of the documents Jasmine presented were already circulating. Analysts from rival networks began weighing in live. Legal experts on YouTube broke down the memo. TikTok was flooded with side-by-side comparisons of Piro's TV rants and the damning quotes in Jasmine's file. By the time the segment ended, Jeanine didn't say goodbye. She simply removed her mic and walked off the set, without a word. She wouldn't return the next night. The fallout was immediate. By midnight, #Piro files had racked up over 6 million mentions. News outlets across the political spectrum picked it up, but the headlines told a unified story. Piro silent after Crockett drops bombshell documents on live TV, former DA's past catches up in brutal takedown, Fox legal host leaves set mid-broadcast after on-air exposure. The next morning, Jeanine Pirro's office released a brief statement. Judge Jeanine unequivocally denies all allegations. These are politically charged distractions with no legal standing. But that didn't stop the dominoes. 3 former Westchester County public defenders held a press conference by noon. One after another, they confirmed the patterns Jasmine exposed. We've been saying this for years, one said. No one listened, until now. Sponsors began pulling out. A well-known legal podcast canceled their upcoming episode with Piro. A book publisher postponed her scheduled re-release. And inside Fox, silence. Meanwhile, Jasmine Crockett stayed quiet, mostly. That afternoon, she posted one tweet, "Sunlight is the best disinfectant. I just opened a few windows." It went instantly viral. By evening, Jeanine's show was officially pulled from the weekend lineup, pending review. And Jasmine? She was booked on every major network, except one. Monday morning arrived like a thunderclap in the media world. Jeanine Pirro, once untouchable, fiery, unfiltered, was nowhere to be seen. Her regular segment, Justice with Judge Jeanine, was replaced with a bland panel discussion and a brief on-screen message, programming change in effect. We appreciate your understanding. But the public wasn't done. Protesters gathered outside Fox News headquarters, holding up signs that read, "How many were silenced?" Justice for the wrongfully convicted, Crockett spoke. Now investigate. Meanwhile, Representative Jasmine Crockett was on MSNBC, calmly discussing criminal justice reform. The host asked, "Congresswoman, some are calling this a career-ending moment for Jeanine Pirro. Was that your goal?" Jasmine shook her head. "My goal was truth. If careers crumble because of the truth, then maybe they weren't built on much to begin with." That quote made front-page news. The Department of Justice announced it was reviewing materials presented in public media regarding past misconduct by officials in Westchester County. A new investigation was officially underway. Fox tried to spin it, briefly. A few commentators attempted damage control, blaming cancel culture, left-wing setups, or fake outrage. But it didn't stick. Because the documents Jasmine revealed, they were real. Verified. Time-stamped. Archived. And people were angry. Jeanine had once been the loudest voice in the room. Now she couldn't even find a mic. By Wednesday, it was no longer a media story, it was a legal one. Former defendants from Jeanine Pirro's DA tenure began coming forward. One of them, Marcus Delaney, had served 12 years before his conviction was overturned. He appeared on CNN that night. I begged her office to look at the new evidence. They never responded, he said. Now I know why. Clips of Marcus's statement spliced alongside Jasmine's confrontation spread like wildfire. Meanwhile, behind the scenes at Fox, the situation was spiraling. Insider leaks revealed that several longtime producers threatened to resign if Piro returned. Advertisers had pulled nearly 70% of ad time from her show. Executives were cornered. By Friday, Jeanine Pirro issued a second statement, this time, recorded from her home. She looked strained. Defensive. I've spent my life fighting for justice, she said. These attacks are politically motivated. I will not apologize for doing my job. But it was too late. That same day, a bipartisan group of lawmakers, led by Crockett, called for an independent commission to review old convictions from Westchester County between 1994 and 2005. They named it the Crockett-Piro Accountability Act. Reporters noted the irony: the woman who once shouted down courtroom defendants now faced a national reckoning, not from her enemies, but from the very system she once controlled. And Jasmine? She didn't say much. But when asked if she felt satisfied, she offered just one line: this isn't about satisfaction. It's about correction. The commission passed the House with overwhelming support. Even some of Piro's former allies voted yes. The public was demanding answers. Pressure on Westchester's current DA mounted, and an official audit of Piro's prosecutorial legacy began within days. Over 40 cases were flagged for review. Meanwhile, legal ethics panels in New York reopened complaints that had been dismissed years ago. Bar associations began quietly discussing whether Jeanine Pirro's license should be suspended pending investigation. The media world shifted. Late-night hosts made Piro the punchline. SNL aired a skit featuring a hyperbolic reenactment of Jasmine sliding documents across the table while Piro melted into her chair. Even right-wing forums split, some still defending her, others accusing her of being a liability. And Jasmine? She remained measured. She declined a dozen primetime interview offers and focused instead on her legislation, calling attention to flaws in prosecutorial immunity, wrongful convictions, and courtroom bias. At a press briefing, a reporter asked, "Congresswoman, what would you say to Jeanine Pirro today, if she were standing here?" Jasmine looked directly into the cameras. "I'd say the same thing I said on live TV. Truth isn't a threat, unless you're hiding from it." That clip made its way onto billboards, campaign ads, and even college classrooms studying modern political discourse. The moment had become more than a takedown, it was a turning point. And for Jeanine Pirro, the silence only grew louder. The silence was broken, but not by Jeanine. It came from her employer. On a quiet Monday morning, a short official press release was posted on Fox News' website. Fox News and Judge Jeanine Pirro have mutually agreed to part ways. We thank her for her years of service and wish her the best in her future endeavors. No farewell segment. No tribute montage. Just, gone. Industry insiders reported Piro had been asked to resign quietly to avoid further corporate fallout. Rumors swirled that high-level execs were furious with how exposed she'd become, not just politically, but legally. One former producer anonymously told Variety, "It wasn't just the documents. It was Jasmine's delivery. She didn't yell. She didn't flinch. She laid it out like a prosecutor closing a case, and Piro had no defense." Meanwhile, Jasmine Crockett's approval numbers surged. She was being heralded not just as a congresswoman, but as a new kind of political force, sharp, poised, and unafraid to challenge legacy power. She received an invitation to speak at Harvard Law. A major publisher approached her for a book deal. And her name appeared on early 2026 Senate challenger lists in Texas. But she stayed focused. In a final Sunday interview on PBS, she addressed the fallout one last time. This was never about a TV host. It was about accountability, and reminding people that public service is a privilege, not a personal brand. The host leaned in. And Jeanine? Jasmine paused. I hope she finds time to reflect. And with that, the Crockett-Piro showdown passed from trending hashtag to political history. Months passed. Investigations proceeded. 3 convictions tied to Jeanine Pirro's office were overturned. One man, Calvin Rhodes, was exonerated after 18 years. His first call was to Representative Jasmine Crockett's office. I don't know her, he told the press, but she saved me without even knowing my name. Jeanine Pirro, meanwhile, faded from headlines. No new media deals. No podcast. Her memoir deal was quietly shelved. She made a single public appearance, at a private fundraiser, where attendees said she looked smaller, quieter, like someone trying to disappear into the room. But Jasmine? She became more than a viral moment. The Crockett-Piro Accountability Act passed both chambers with bipartisan backing, setting a new standard for prosecutorial audits nationwide. Law schools began teaching her debate clip alongside landmark legal ethics cases. She never gloated. Never played the victim. She just kept working. And when she stood on the steps of the Capitol months later, flanked by exonerees and fellow lawmakers, she said, "We can't rewrite the past, but we can expose it. We can correct it. And we can make damn sure it doesn't repeat." The crowd rose in applause. Cameras flashed. A new voice had arrived in American politics, not with theatrics, but with truth, receipts, and an unshakable sense of justice. And somewhere, in the quiet corners of political memory, Jeanine Pirro's name remained, not as the voice of justice she once claimed to be, but as the echo of a legacy dismantled, live. Nearly a year later, Washington buzzed with rumors. A leaked memo suggested that Jeanine Pirro had hired a new legal team, not to fight any charges, but to prepare a public comeback. Whispers swirled about a self-funded documentary, a redemption book, even a possible podcast tour titled, Justice Reclaimed. Reporters reached out to Jasmine Crockett's office. Her response? A single-word tweet, clockwork. But what no one expected was the invitation. Jeanine Pirro requested a live televised sit-down with Jasmine Crockett. She framed it as a truth and reconciliation event, not a debate, not a battle, but a conversation between two women who understand the stakes of public accountability. To everyone's surprise, Jasmine accepted. The network billed it as The Reckoning, 1 year later. The stage was stark. No crowd. No flashy intros. Just 2 chairs and a single camera crew. Piro opened with a practiced tone. "Congresswoman, I made decisions that hurt people. I was wrong not to revisit them sooner." Jasmine didn't smile. She listened. And when it was her turn, she didn't gloat. "I didn't expose you to ruin you," she said. "I exposed what you tried to bury. That's not personal, that's public service." Piro nodded, eyes lowered. The broadcast went viral again, but this time, for a different reason. Not because of humiliation, but because of the rare sight of closure. Jasmine's calm. Piro's restraint. The weight of what was said, and unsaid. As the segment ended, the camera lingered. 2 women. One humbled, one resolute. And a nation still learning how to face its own reflection. 6 months after the televised sit-down, Jeanine Pirro quietly relocated to a private estate in upstate New York. She declined all interview requests. Her planned memoir, judged, My Side of Justice, was shelved indefinitely. Public appearances? None. Media offers? Withdrawn. Reputation? Permanently marked by one live broadcast she never saw coming. But Jasmine Crockett's path was only rising. She introduced a national, Fair Trials and Transparency Act, requiring prosecutors to disclose all exculpatory evidence, backed by both Republicans and Democrats. It passed with wide support. She toured universities, not with book deals, but with panels on prosecutorial ethics, civil rights law, and how truth, when wielded responsibly, can reshape policy. And then came the announcement: Jasmine Crockett would run for U.S. Senate. At her campaign launch, she stood before thousands. "I don't come from legacy. I don't come from television. I come from truth. And in this country, truth shouldn't whisper. It should lead." The crowd erupted. Not in spectacle, but in conviction. As for Piro, a journalist once spotted her in a small cafe, alone. No makeup, no entourage. Just a notepad. When asked if she regretted going up against Jasmine Crockett, she looked away and said, "I regret underestimating her." That moment, quiet, unrehearsed, and real, said more than her entire television career ever did. Because in the end, Jasmine didn't just end a show. She started a movement.